probably wondering, what is she going to say this time? What is she going to talk about? Well, I've been thinking a lot about what we all have been going through in terms of the systemic and institutional racism that we all have faced. And so the question was asked, what motivates you? What are you going to do as a mother and as a grandmother? So I thought it would be best for me to just share my story. And my story is that I have 2 sons, adult sons who have their own families, and I have 7 grandsons. I have 5 granddaughters. So for me, my motivation is, what's their world going to be like, and what are we going to do? So what I've started doing with my family is I've asked my sons to say to me, when was the first time that they were faced with racism? What were the circumstances? How did they handle it? Did they tell their mother? Did they tell their father? What did they do with that? And then I wanted them to share their stories with their children, just like I shared the first time I was faced with institutional racism. And I'm not so sure it was institutional, but it was with one of my best friends, and I was 5 years old. So I think it was institutional in the sense that she was not born that way. She was taught to be a racist, and she didn't even know it herself at the time. So what we're doing is we're spending time, my sons and their families, and myself, as well as my mother and I, we're sharing our stories with our children and with our grandchildren. Because I'm a firm believer that if you're the author of the story, you know the story better than anybody else. Who else can best tell your story than you? So am I motivated? Yes, I am. Am I inspired? Yes, I am. Why? Because I am the mother of 2 adult sons. I am the grandmother of 12 grandchildren. And guess what? I'm also the great-grandmother of 1. I want her world, the youngest, to be the best world it possibly can be. I don't want her to have to fight for the same things that I fought for, that my mother and father fought for, that my grandparents fought for. Is it time for it to be over? It's been time. And how best for us to end it than if each of us is motivated and inspired to do what she can. And I'm going to say she because we're talking about, as members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, what can we do? Sorors, it's time. It's been time. So get inspired, get motivated, go do what you need to do as the mother, the grandmother, or the great-grandmother that you are. Thank you. There've been times that I've known I could last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gon' come. Oh, yes it will. There's an army rising up. There's an army rising up, yeah, to break every chain, break every chain, break every chain, to break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. I hear the chains falling. You gotta hear it. I hear the chains. I hear the chains falling. But you know what? Let's talk about what can community members do. Those who are not members of Delta Sigma Theta. My advice is do the same thing. All of us need to tell our stories and tell our stories to our children, to our grandchildren, to our great-grandchildren, but tell our stories. As I said earlier, yes, we are all authors of our own story. And since we wrote the story, and we wrote them to be true because they were true, then we are the ones who should tell them. And why? Because nobody can tell your story better than you, the original author. So as a member of the community, Yes, I want you to be inspired and motivated because it's going to take all of us collectively to make sure that this thing that we call racism with its ugly head, that cancer is gone, that we eradicate it, not diminish it, but that we eradicate it. Racism is over. It's now is the time for us, all of us, to do what we need to do.
We shall be free, Lord, one day. Lord, Lord, give me a heart, yeah, to believe, Lord, we shall be free, Lord, one day.